studios. This is After 9 with Scott and Kat.
Hey now!
Hello, y'all.
What's going on, Kat?
Oh, things. Podcast things right now.
Podcast things
currently.
right now, yeah.
But I have a fucking list of shit to do today.
Is it coming up to busy season for you?
It's very busy. Yes, fall is the most busy time. Fall is the most busy time. It's heavy with work stuff. It's heavy with kids' activities stuff. I mean, you name it. I'm here, there, and everywhere. I have dentist appointments today to bring kids to, and then I have and I've got all kinds of things today. Anyway, it's a busy time of year.
Okay, well, we're going to get through some really good content here on this episode of After 9. There's some good topics that we want to cover here, and, let's just jump right into it. The CRTC, for those who don't know, the Canadian Radio and Telecommunications Commission, that's the governing body for radio, television, all that sort of thing. They have ordered Canada's largest cell phone carriers to make their international roaming rates more affordable. Bell, Rogers, TELUS, they've got until November 4th to tell the CRTC what they're going to do to bring down cell phone fees for Canadians when traveling abroad. I mean, great. And the commission says that if the companies aren't making sufficient progress, they will launch a formal public proceeding and kick the can down the road for another year or two. Number one, I feel like whenever the CRTC gets involved, it never actually ends up bringing the price down. How many times have they come out and said, oh, yeah, we're going to go after the cell phone companies and we're going to get your bills lower? It's not really working.
Yeah, I don't know. Even with the contracts and things, there are some slight changes that have been made through the years that are okay. But otherwise, just because they say we're going to talk to them about it and they're going to tell us their plan, it doesn't mean any of the plans are going to make sense. And maybe, like, truth be told, maybe it costs them a lot of money. So they have no choice but to charge us a lot of money because they're paying for it to piggyback off of those cell signals, which is what happens when you cross the border, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, when I cross the border, I use Freedom Mobile. I made the switch a while ago. I'm still not happy that I did it. I got a great...
You like taking phone calls and actually holding them?
Well, this is the problem. If you've never heard my thing on Freedom is they're great because you get unlimited data, and when you roam in the States, it's $0 extra dollars. It doesn't cost you anything extra. Your phone works all across North America. But the call quality is crazy bad. Every time I take a call, it drops. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. A lateral move at best. I'm saving money, but I'm scrambling to get to Starbucks and McDonald's for Wi-Fi so I can do a Wi-Fi phone call anytime I'm on the road. It sucks. But they've found a way to roll it in for $35 a month, their roaming fees. Yet if you're with Bell or TELUS or Rogers, they charge you a day rate when you cross the border. And even if you don't make a single phone call or check your phone, we all know your phone's using data in the background. As soon as a kilobyte goes down, bam, you get charged $8, $10, $12, $16 a day. It's not right. When other people come to Canada, they don't pay rates like that to roam here. Why are we paying those kind of rates to roam elsewhere?
And I wonder if that is a company thing, and it totally could be. Maybe they should be making better deals, and I don't know. Maybe something will come of this that's going to be good. And if so, great. I don't find it, like, I'll be honest, I don't know. Maybe it's my plan or what have you, but I don't find it to be too much money. I get a really good signal whenever I cross the border. I pay like $12 a day.
Yeah.
I think that's worth every penny to use my phone like I do here.
So mine, ironically, my Freedom plan actually works better in America because it switches me over to T-Mobile.
Yeah, see? And you're in bed. Yeah, exactly.
Like when I'm there, I have no issues. When I'm here at home is when I have problems. I guess it's a good thing for the CRTC to tackle. Everybody knows Canada's got some of the highest cell phone rates in the world. And despite a federal government that says they're committed to lowering rates and a CRTC that says they're committed to lowering rates, I don't really know that we're seeing lower rates here. The other problem is, what about the rest of the bill? It's great that you're going after roaming. That is a tangible thing when people cross the border or go on vacation or travel for business. But what about just the regular monthly bill?
I know. I'm wondering about all those fees that you get paid for too, right? I mean, in general, I don't know if it's as bad. Some people probably have like it worse. I don't know. The problem is, unless we compare notes with those major companies, we'll never know. You know what I mean? You don't know unless you compare the notes. Like, what are you paying and for what? You know? And when you have those conversations with people, that's when you go, wait, what? That's what gets me is that like someone, and I understand deals happen, right? I'm on a deal. for our parent company right now, right? So I'm under that plan. So I save money that way, and I can bring my husband in on it too. And it's great. And we save a decent amount of money with both of us on this plan. But so those things I understand. But in general, the fact that someone can sign up over at Bell for the exact same things, let's say it's unlimited this and that, and you could do this up to this amount and this much data, and then you go over to Rogers, and it's the exact same thing, but you're paying different prices. That's where I get red flaggy. Like, no, that shouldn't be okay that one company could charge more for the exact same thing. You know, and you could say that, sure, it's based on towers and this and that and the next thing. I don't know, man. I don't know if I buy it.
I don't know if I buy it either. You know, one of the easiest ways to lower prices quickly is to bring in competition. But for whatever reason, we don't seem to like to do that in Canada. We went through that grocery crisis where they were just bending us over at the grocery store. We all remember it. Prices are starting to come down a little bit now, but it's still obnoxiously high. I don't know why we didn't just pay to bring in more international grocers. Bring in Trader Joe's, bring in Kroger, bring in Wegmans, bring in all those American chains. Let them set up and watch how quickly Metro and Loblaw and Sobeys and Farm Boy and Longo's drop their prices when they've got some big American conglomerates to compete with. Same thing with the cell phone companies. You watch how quickly Rogers and Bell and Telus are going to have to cut their rates when we get everything from Mint Mobile to AT&T to T-Mobile to Sprint and all the other American ones that do so well at charging a lower rate. A friend of my son's friend showed me his cell phone bill the last time I was in the States. He's paying $25 a month, unlimited, everything. Never pays any extra. It's just $25 a month. And I think he's partially paying off his phone at $25 a month. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
We pay way too much. Are you at all concerned or worried or thinking about Hurricane Milton?
Of course. Yeah, I am concerned. So I went down a bit of a TikTok rabbit hole yesterday, just kind of glimpsing at what people were talking about who are there. Because yes, guys, there are people who are there in Tampa, for example. And one of the women that was on there, the people were commenting like, just like thoughts and prayers to you. Like, why would you stay here? But she figured, you know what? By the time I try to get out of here, I'll probably be stuck in a storm elsewhere. The roads are apparently really hard to get through right now. So she decided to buckle down, went to like the Home Depot and bought all the supplies that she figures she probably needs. And I just think that what a shoddy predicament to be in, like that you to put yourself in even. And people making comments like write your name, write your information on your arm when your corpse is found, which is probably not a fun thing for her to read either. But yeah, of course I have concern. I do feel for anyone who's I've never been through that before. I've never been through it, but obviously seeing what we see when the news cycle hits and sure enough, there's the hurricane, there's the damage. It like even what's happening with Helene, you're still seeing things from that. And that just breaks my heart to see people's homes gone, or lives lost. That's awful. It's
horrible how those people are being treated too, particularly in North Carolina. They've been shortchanged on supplies. Their government basically offered them like a slap in the face. Here's $750.
Yeah, that's
and you got to pay it back.
And how much money the government spends on other shit that they shouldn't. It is a slap in the face.
When did governments stop prioritizing their own people?
Yeah.
Real scary stuff. In any case, though, I might even come back to Hurricane Helene. When it comes to Hurricane Milton, this is one that I love weather. I've never been through a hurricane, but I really want to. And what I've learned from many, many years of covering hurricane season on the radio is that the bulk of the storms all come from September onward. October is a particularly active month most of the time. This is a second major tornado in 12 days, and there are currently 3 of them that are doing some level of activity in the Caribbean area. So, hey, we got to think about it. When it comes to this one, though, I don't think I've ever seen one this powerful. Let me play for you. He is a renowned meteorologist out of South Florida. His name is John Morales. He works for NBC6. He was doing a report on the hurricane yesterday, and as he was looking at the raw numbers, he broke down. Listen to this.
It's certainly, it's just an incredible, incredible, incredible hurricane. It has dropped, it has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific. Maximum sustained winds are 160 miles per hour.
160 mile per hour winds.
Insanity.
He broke down because he knows a lot of people are going to die. And for the people that are in Florida, maybe you are, there's a lot of homeless people there right now, which really scares me.
Sure. I was thinking of that. I was thinking about like all the long-term care. How do they work that with the facilities that people are in and hospitals people are in?
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think of that.
Right? Like you bus everybody out, and that's not an easy, that's not just saying, hey, bus everyone out. It doesn't work like that. There's
No.
people who cannot leave, or I shouldn't say cannot leave, but it's very complex and complicated to get them to leave where they are.
More and more people are staying through like category 1 and even category 2 hurricanes because we've learned over the years that they're dangerous. Absolutely. But the damage doesn't necessarily tend to be as bad as a Cat 4 or Cat 5. So a lot of people will choose to ride it out. In this case, it's good that there's a lot of people getting out of the way. When it's going at a major population center like Tampa and all the surrounding cities, which are big too, and then it's going to go for Orlando after that before it exits Florida around Cape Canaveral, the amount of damage this thing has the potential to do, you heard it, 160 miles per hour, well over 200 kilometers an hour winds.
And I was saying it today too, kind of joking around about it, but truthful. Like, could you imagine this is the week that you were like, yeah, the family's going to Disney. We're finally doing it. We're spending that $15,000. And this is the week. And then obviously, and then for some people, they don't have cancellation policies in play. And
Yeah.
But I joked about it on the show, like kind of thing, like, could you imagine? And someone messaged, and sure enough, they're like, yep, my sister's pretty much in that boat.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Disney's closed.
Oh, they're closed, yes. Today and tomorrow for sure. And then they're saying that they will issue a statement about the following day.
Do you know how much damage is going to be done by 160 mile per hour winds going over Orlando? It's
Yeah.
going to hit likely as a category 3, maybe a category 4.
Yeah.
But even if it's down to a cat 2 when it goes over Orlando, which is fairly realistic, some of those tower rides go way up in the air. There's going to be damage, a lot of it.
Yeah, there'll be damage.
I don't think Disney's
Yeah.
reopening for a while. They're closing the Tampa airport today, which is also frustrating if you're trying to get out of Florida. And I've got friends that are down in Florida right now. Now, they're a little bit closer to Miami than they are to Tampa, but they're still feeling it. I saw on X this morning, there's people in Cancun that can feel the lightning as if they're in the middle of the eye of the hurricane.
And they're not even.
It's past Cancun,
Yeah.
and they're still seeing lightning like they've never seen before. This is Ocala, Florida Mayor Marciano talking about preparations for Hurricane Milton.
We've been preparing for the last several days, just getting our residents ready, opening sandbag locations. We've encouraged people that are living in mobile homes or RVs to consider taking shelter. We've opened all of our schools and really just telling people to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Because we are in the middle of the state, we are experiencing a lot of evacuees coming into our community. So we're really trying to do whatever we can to be able to take them in and make sure that they're taken care of, also obviously taking care of our citizens.
For the people that are trying to evacuate, I heard the traffic is just like Toronto times 10 bad.
Yeah.
28 miles of bumper-to-bumper traffic going south and north, trying to get out of the path of where this hurricane's going to hit in central Florida.
I took a glance at the traffic map because anyone can do that anytime. I took a glance at it not too long ago to check and see, is it really as bad as people are saying? And yeah, definitely up north of Tampa is where people obviously tend to be heading rather than south. There's really only so many places you can go at that particular part of Florida. I think we all know, if you know what Florida looks like. But trying to get north, I mean, all of those areas, I really hope that everyone can get up and get out of the way safely. It's good. I think you're right, though. Unfortunately, we're probably going to see a lot of unfortunate news stories coming from the next couple of days from that area.
All the mobile home parks and trailer parks.
Yeah.
I mean, holy shit.
And people are stubborn. There's some people who really just have no idea. There are people who are extremely stubborn, and I'm staying put. So you're going to get a mixed bag of people who are either doing it because they sincerely have no idea, they don't think it's going to be as bad as it probably will be, or they know that it might be bad, but they think I can manage. So I feel for everybody there.
Speaking of Milton, and not Milton as in the hurricane, I mean the great city in the center of Ontario, Milton, Ontario. I lived there for many, many years, and I still follow what goes on there. I'm going to mention this because it's going to have a big impact on a lot of people. For years, they've wanted to put this CN intermodal like train depot in Milton. And the people in Milton do not want this. They have been fighting it for years to not get this intermodal in. Well, lo and behold, the federal government approved it. And then the residents who don't want it managed to get an appeal. It's over. The Federal Court of Appeal has dismissed a challenge by a large group of local residents and politicians. The Federal Appeals Court says the federal government's decision to approve the project was reasonable. This project will double CN's existing line of tracks in Milton, and they will construct a hub for containers to be transferred between trucks and trains.
So, okay, can you tell me people's concern in Milton about it? Is it about traffic being affected with the train tracks? Is it about, what is it about specifically?
It's mainly about the amount of traffic and pollution. So when they build this big intermodal, they're going to have, for every train that comes in that's got containers on it, they got to move them by truck. There's going to be hundreds and hundreds of trucks going up and down Milton streets. And it's already bad for construction. And the traffic in that city, they really didn't plan it right. I should have run for mayor years ago. They've got big problems with traffic as it is. Now they're going to build this there, and the residents don't want it. I don't understand how this happens. They elected a liberal who's very well connected with the prime minister. How can he not go and say, man, you're not putting that in Milton because it makes me look bad? They still approved it. And Milton's like, what is going on here? We don't want this.
Is there money at play here? Is
there's going to be money.
Of course.
And you know what? In fairness, there will be jobs. And you know what? It's got to go somewhere. We just constantly kick ourselves in the dick around here. Same with this farmland issue in Wilmot. They swear we got to have shovel-ready ground to build a warehouse facility near Kitchener. So they expropriated a whole bunch of land and made the farmers sign NDAs. It's crazy. There's other places. You just got to get creative. Why are you putting this intermodal in Milton when it could very easily go north of Milton? Put it in anywhere else. These people do not want it. And people that are paying taxes in a city should absolutely have a say. There should be a referendum. And if the people don't want it, it doesn't happen. Find somewhere else, CN. That's all there is to it.
Isn't it scary, actually, the lack of say you have as a taxpayer, just generally speaking? Locally or not.
I think that one of two things needs to happen. I think we need to pick a lane when it comes to property taxes in particular, because we've got a lot of mayors raising property taxes, and you don't actually own your home. It's funny because it says you own the home, but the bank owns part of it. Well, not the boulevard out front. You got to cut it, but you can't actually do anything to it. And if there's a tree on it, you need permission to cut it down. The list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Do we own it or do we not? Because if we don't own it, then cut the taxes.
You don't own those sidewalks, but you do have to shovel them.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah.
They've twisted it into a pretzel, and we're all just suckers like, well, I guess that's the way it is. And we do it, myself included. We pay our property taxes every month, but do you actually have any rights as a property owner? I have a unique property, but I live in a subdivision. And where I live, there's a rule that you can't have an outdoor fire pit. Even though the city next to me, north to me, and to the other side of me.
That's so messed up.
All have, they don't have that rule.
They can do it.
But me, because of my address, not because of the property or because it's unsafe.
Or you're responsible. Like you could be the more responsible than someone lighting one that can light one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I phoned the fire department and I said, listen, I know it's a bylaw here that I can't have a fire pit, but I think that's a very arbitrary law and it should depend on the property. And if you come and inspect mine, like you're supposed to do, fire department, come and look. It's nowhere near any structures. It's not near a fence. There's no trees overhead. There's nothing unsafe about this. They won't even come and look to consider an exemption. It's crazy. What am I paying $6,000 a year in taxes for?
Honestly.
Anyway, if you're in Milton and you fought the good fight to keep that intermodal away, I feel for you. I was there with you, and it's sad that we have no say in our own city and that your politicians are not listening to you. There's an update on the Diddy situation. I think I know what's going on now. Diddy's lawyer. Why don't you tell the story about what Diddy's lawyer suspects?
Well, we liked Tony Busby, didn't we?
I did.
Okay, so I think I still do. So basically, recently, TMZ invited him on to talk about what's going on with these cases. 120 cases which have yet to be filed officially, lawsuits against Diddy from alleged victims spanning decades, okay? For those who don't know, that's it. He says he represents 60 males, 60 females that were wronged by Diddy, they say. These are not not in association with the criminal charges that Diddy faces. So keep that in mind. There's criminal charges. We all know that's what he's in jail for currently. These are separate lawsuits, and he represents these people. And at the time, he's like, we're going to name names. Corporations are going down. We're going to talk about record labels and hotels. He's already admitting that he's handed out letters to a lot of the names, the people that will be involved in these lawsuits, whose names will be named publicly. Hey, if you want to settle out of court now, do it, or your name's going to be out there.
Right.
And he admits that there are A-listers. He calls them A-listers, whether his definition of an A-lister might be different than ours. But he says A-listers, there's some who have already settled. So some of the cases have settled, but he'll take on new ones as those ones get settled. Of course he will, because it's money in his pocket. However, it's kind of disappointing a little bit to hear that, because I do think if you're in association, not to say these people did anything wrong. It's not like, I don't know, I'll say Kevin Hart. I'll give Kevin Hart as an example, because there's videos going around. You've probably seen it. So that's a great example of someone who has money. So if someone wants to say, Kevin Hart saw me, be put into a room with XYZ, and he's named in this suit, even though he didn't do anything wrong, but his name is still there. That's all that matters. He'll buy his way out of his name being there.
Well, it's starting to make sense to me. When you told this story on the radio show today, it added up instantly. The Epstein thing, it still boggles my mind that we can't find out who went to the island. We can't find out who the contacts were. Don't know who's in the black book. Ghislaine Maxwell's not talking. It bugs me. And I thought, why? The guy, this should have been in court, and there should have been a trial done already. Same with the Diddy thing. What's with this pause? You guys raided his mansion and then nothing for months.
Yeah.
Then you arrested him. Now we're going through nothing again, except for bail hearings. We should know exactly what the allegations are and who's involved. But I think the powers that be are just giving these A-listers enough time to get someone to sign an NDA. I.e., before we put all this stuff out there publicly, we want to know who we're naming. So if you're going to get somebody to sign an NDA, do it now. And anybody who doesn't have NDAs, then we go with them for the actual stuff.
You know, it's sad to me because I didn't want that to be a scare tactic. I didn't want what this lawyer was saying to be a scare tactic. I wanted it to be let's out people who should be outed, who are bad people. I understand if you're just a witness to it and you really didn't know what was happening. Of course you don't want your name out there. And if you literally did nothing wrong and you went to a party thinking it was a normal party that normal people go to and then went, oh, shit, what is happening over there? Freak off, and you learn about it and you get the fuck out. You should not be, you did nothing criminally wrong, but in not saying something, people will find fault in you, which I don't think makes you as much of a guilty party, of course.
I want the people who did stuff with kids and underagers. I want the names of people who did things that weren't consensual. I want the names of people who organized it and brought those kids in.
Yes.
I want all of that. I'm not looking for, it's not a witch hunt going for anybody who ever went to a party that P. Diddy hosted. What you said is absolutely right. There's people who went to these parties not knowing what goes on here. Maybe they were new in Hollywood or no one had told them before, or they just became an A-lister. So they'll go to these parties and see what's going on and say, this isn't my thing. There was one celebrity who said, I would go to parties because they were pretty good until about 11, midnight, and that's when things started getting out of hand, and you just knew, okay, now's my cue to exit. So they would regularly go to Diddy parties because it wasn't all freak-offs until later on in the night.
Right.
When the drugs came out and the shipment of whoever arrived.
By the way, there's some rumors circulating now that Billie Eilish did once tell people or someone that Justin Bieber warned her to stay away from Diddy early in her career, like when she first was known. I don't know if that's true. That's why I didn't even mention it on the show or anything, but there's some people saying Billie Eilish literally said Justin Bieber said that. So, and Justin Bieber has yet to talk.
When he does, the world is going to be listening.
I hope if he has things to say, he says them.
Yeah.
Please.
You know what, though? I mean,
it's hard, though.
What
mentally.
he went through, I wouldn't blame him if he didn't.
This is the thing, is if he went through what we think he went through, he probably just wants to, that's why he wants to move on, right? You could see, though, all the pieces are there to put together. That Justin Bieber wanted the hell away from Hollywood, to be left alone. People didn't understand what he went through. They judged him on things that he was doing when really it was a kind of a cry for help.
Yeah.
And if it's true, then you understand why he doesn't want to talk about it, because he's trying to get past it for himself.
I really don't know if any progress is going to be made in going after the people who were involved in this until something changes with the FBI or the CIA or whoever it is that's investigating this. But it's been way too long and people need to know details.
Let's go.
While we're talking celebrities, another one, a semi-old friend, acquaintance, What are we to Al Pacino?
Oh, we can call ourselves the old acquaintances.
Sure.
We met him once, and we think that we're friends, okay? Here's the truth. As I still tell people, if Al Pacino gets brought up in any way, yeah, I met him. I touched his shoulder. There's photographic evidence. But he was a really nice guy. He came to Toronto, in case you're wondering. It was during TIFF many years ago. And he's eclectic. He's eccentric. He's exactly as you would picture Al Pacino to be. And he did it was called One Night Only. They do this every year where they bring in someone who just tells you stories about your childhood and someone interviews them. And he had some funny stories. He's just like, he's been around a long time. So now he's got a different story that he's telling people about what happened to him during COVID.
He died, technically. No pulse. He had to be resuscitated and brought back to life.
How long was he dead for? Did he say specifically
I
in
think
this interview?
less than a minute before they got him back.
Okay.
So he was technically dead, but not really dead because he's still very much alive. It was a COVID infection, I think they linked it to, right? Or some sort of an infection during COVID. I don't know all the details, but what stands out is Al Pacino is now saying there's no afterlife. When we die, we're done. That's it. He says when he was technically dead, he didn't see some white light like so many other people have said they've seen when they had that near-death experience or were actually dead. He says he didn't see it, so he believes there is nothing coming after our current life. When we're done, we're done. And I feel like, A, he should have said spoiler alert. And,
Yes.
and B, I don't know that we should necessarily be taking the word of Al Pacino or any one individual for it. I'd love to think that there is something more. We've heard enough stories from people over the decades about so many people say they saw a white light. And there's some scientific explanation for what people might be seeing, but a lot of people believe that that was them either crossing over into the afterlife or being rejected and kicked back to Earth, and that's when they came back and told their story. Why did Pacino see nothing? Maybe it's decades of abuse of drugs. Maybe.
Maybe you weren't good enough, Al.
Maybe you're just a shitty person and only certain people go to the afterlife and you're earmarked for somewhere else, Al.
I know. Well, I was wondering. That's why I was wondering how long he was dead for. Because I wonder if that would factor into whether you see light or not. And you could do a deep dive on this. It's very interesting. There's a Netflix series that it's old now. It's probably got to be about 5 years old, but it's about consciousness specifically, about what consciousness is. Because we're conscious right now, right, of what we're doing. But there's some people who believe that your consciousness still lives after you die. And that's what the spirit is, essentially. There's people who claim that they were floating above themselves on operating tables, for example, when they
Right.
died. Things like that. And they were
Yeah.
able to see it because although their body was physically dead, their consciousness, which some people will call a spirit, but whatever it is, whatever makes us alert and able is our consciousness. Anyway, it's very, very interesting. But what I would say to Al is if it was just like a minute or something, maybe it wasn't enough time for him to have that experience. Maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe he didn't see it for other reasons. Maybe there is none. I mean, I don't know. But to come out and say, you could totally say you don't believe it. Everyone's allowed to believe or not believe whatever they want to.
Sure.
But to say, there isn't. I didn't see a light. There isn't a light.
It's very definitive
It's
what
very
Al is saying.
definitive about all of us when really it's a personal experience that you had. And my God, I hope none of us experienced that because that sounds really scary. But, you know?
In your heart of hearts, deep down in your gut, which is deep inside your body, do you think there's something after we leave Earth? Something, anything, a state, a presence, anything. Maybe you think we're going to go live on a cloud with big pearly gates. Jesus there at the front door checking names off.
What's so funny is that I'm so interested in it because here's the phrase that you'll hear from people who like me. I don't think so, but I want to think so. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
I want to believe that. I want to believe there's something. I'm going to a medium this weekend, by the way, which I'll talk
you
more
really?
about. I am.
Yes.
I'm going with a relative because I'm open. I'm an open person to that kind of thing. I'm skeptical, but I'm open. So for me, I'd like to think that we do have our conscious selves still exist after our body is dead. Whether that's what I believe in the most. I don't believe, in heaven as we hear about it or hell as we hear about it, but that our conscious continues to essentially float around in whatever way that means.
Would it be on Earth or would it go somewhere else?
I mean, anywhere it wants to go.
Interesting. So it's not like when you go to the other side, you're just like a spirit or a presence floating over the earth looking down on the people here. You could be anywhere. It might not be a place at all. It might just be a state of mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It's whatever consciousness is, which we haven't figured out what it is. We don't know what it is.
The alternative is shitty to think of. That's why I don't like that Al
Yeah.
Pacino came out and said that. There's a lot of people who are hanging on to nothing but hope.
That's right.
And preparing themselves for whatever comes next,
Yeah.
particularly seniors, people with chronic illness and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to hear a message like that.
No, I don't think so either. Al.
Thanks, Al.
Thanks for nothing, Al.
One more thing I'm going to do. I'm going to play just a couple of these. I don't think you were watching TV on Sunday night, were you?
I don't think so.
One of the shows that I really like to watch is one of ours. It's 60 Minutes. And
yeah.
you can see that on Global. It wasn't on Sunday night. And
It was Big Brother, by the way. I was watching something. It was Big Brother, and that's also on Global.
Right. So
I did not see 60 Minutes, though.
60 Minutes wasn't on, and I thought, did somebody at headquarters screw up? Why is 60 Minutes not on? There's going to be a lot of angry old people out there if 60 Minutes doesn't come on Sunday night at 7 o'clock. They get mad when it gets preempted for football. If it's not on at all, wow, that's going to be bad. They aired it last night.
Oh.
So I watched it, and it was supposed to be they were going to do sit-down interviews with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Trump declined, said he didn't want to do it, not with 60 Minutes, because the last time he had quite the encounter with Leslie Stahl. So they just did it on Kamala Harris. And it was interesting because she hasn't really done a lot of interviews. I'm going to play just a couple of different clips from Kamala last night.
Tell you what your critics and the columnists say.
Okay.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. And I have been traveling our country. And I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus, where we can figure out compromise and understand it's not a bad thing, as long as you don't compromise your values, to find common sense solutions. And that has been my approach.
Okay.
So about changing your position, what about that? She didn't answer the question. Let's do
That's a politician for you, though.
but they're all like that now.
Yeah.
I like. Is there like a politician store where parties just go and they pick out a Kamala or a Justin or something like that and say, "Yep, you're going to be our leader," because they're all cut from the same cloth. We elect these people and they're expected to be accountable to us, but nobody answers a question. The 60 Minutes guy, and 60 Minutes is fairly left wing. This was supposed to be a very, very friendly interview for Kamala Harris to make herself look good. Set her up for a home run, and she didn't even hit. She didn't even swing.
Interesting. And you know what's funny about that is on the other end to that, people believe she swung and hit in the Call Her Daddy podcast, which also was released on Sunday. And Trump's team, I guess, was asked to be on that podcast, which has millions and millions of listeners.
Third most listened to podcast out there.
Why is he not doing these things? Like, I mean, if you do have a chance to change minds of people, why would you not do it?
I think
That I don't understand.
I mean, from a strategy standpoint, Kamala's not going to go and sit down and do an interview, even on CNN. She won't do it on Fox News. She won't do it on CBS. She got crushed here last night on 60 Minutes, and that was supposed to be a softball-friendly one. I think she just doesn't want... She wants to be able to control what messaging goes out there. And on a podcast like Call Her Daddy, it's fairly focused what you're going to be talking about. They're not going to be talking about Ukraine and sending money all over the place. They want to talk about more social issues like abortion. And they did, sure. In the same vein, I wouldn't expect to see Trump, who does do those other interviews, doing Call Her Daddy, because I don't think he knows what to say to those people. He probably has no idea who they are.
Yeah.
A little weird that they're getting into politics, but that's okay. That's
well, I mean, you know what I appreciate is that, like, here's what I don't like is that you can actually get paid by parties to talk about parties.
Yep.
I don't think that's fair.
No.
And I don't think that's allowed. But there are some people who have a platform, and I'm even talking about social media influencers who have admitted they got asked and offered money to talk about Kamala Harris, for example, or to talk about Donald Trump and how they side with them. So the fact that there's money being handed out for these things, for these celebrities to talk about or not talk about whatever, I think that's wrong. I think that should be illegal. You should not be paid. They should be allowed to pay for advertisement. Sure. Radio, TV, go ahead. Pay for the advertisement, however you want to use it, to bash the opponent or to talk about your platform. I think that's fair. You shouldn't be able to pay to someone to endorse you. I don't like that at all. I don't understand how it's legal.
Well, I mean, we wonder. Well, we don't wonder. I know exactly why, but there's trust in the media is at an all-time low. And it's kind of heartbreaking to do that.
This is why.
Because we're members of the media. But I don't think that we necessarily get thrown into the same category as the people who host the 6 o'clock news and stuff like that. Because I think we're a little more honest and it will at least call a spade a spade.
It's not like this. It's not like that. These are like social influencers who really are influencers. Like, people toss around that word, and sure, you might think you're an influencer and maybe there's some people who aren't. There are people who sincerely are. You mention something, people will ask you about it. So the fact that you could just get paid to say it, if you don't believe it. Now, I suppose it's fine. Take the paycheck if you're like, I strongly support this person, and they happen to come along and ask me to support them publicly, and I said, sure, I'll take how much money it is, I don't know. I'll take your $50,000 to quickly post about how much I love you and I'm voting for you. I just don't like that. I just don't think it's okay. Is that legal here in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, if Justin Trudeau came along and said, Scott and Kat, going to give you guys $100,000 a piece, but we're going to do an interview on After 9, and you're not going to shit all over me.
Here's the questions you're going to ask me.
Here's the questions you're going to ask me. It's very set up and very contrived in that sense.
So icky.
It is icky. It's really, really gross, but they're doing
legal.
it. And it's funny because
I just don't think it should be.
They talk about misinformation and disinformation. There was a really great exchange yesterday. I'll play it for you, and then we're going to end. It was actually, no, there's two more things I'm going to play. It was in the White House briefing room, and a question was asked by a reporter specifically about money for Hurricane Helene victims. There not being enough there, even though the government just sent millions over to support Lebanon. And, I'm going to play the exchange for you. It was Ducey is the reporter from Fox News. He was talking to Karim Jean-Pierre, who is the White House press secretary. This is about a minute and a half.
To the impacted areas. But instead, people want to do disinformation, misinformation, which is dangerous, because then when folks on the ground hear that, they may not want to ask for the help that they need. That is there for them. That's our focus here.
But President Biden is fond of saying, show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. If he's got money for people in Lebanon right now, without Congress having to come back, what does it say about his values? There's not enough money right now for people in North Carolina who need it. That's not misinformation.
Wait, no, that is your whole premise of the question is misinformation, sir. What you don't? Yes, it's misinformation.
Is there money to send to Lebanon right now?
See, that's the problem. The question is disinformation. A question by definition can't be misinformation. He's saying if the president can send money over to Lebanon without having to get authorization from Congress, why can't he send money to North Carolina to help these victims without dealing with Congress? And she called that disinformation. Nothing about that was disinformation. That's your job as the press secretary to say, okay, listen, here's the plan and clarify. But nobody wants to clarify. They'll just throw around, oh, well, I don't like the question, so that's misinformation and disinformation. I'm still not even 100% sure the difference between misinformation and disinformation, but apparently there is one. Last thing, and then we got to go. Elon Musk did an interview yesterday, and I think he said what many, many, many people are thinking. Elon can fully acknowledge now that if Donald Trump doesn't win, he's fucked. That's a quote, believe it or not.
If he loses, man, what? You're fucked, dude.
I'm fucked. If he loses, I'm fucked.
It does seem that way. You can't just be like,
Yeah, I'm like, how long do you think my prison sentence is going to be? Do you think? Will I see my children? I don't know.
Because it's not like you can say, well, yeah, I maxed out to him, but, I get...
I have no plausible deniability. No, and I've been trashing Kamala nonstop.
Oh, I know.
These are people that are actually worried that if their guy doesn't win the election, they're going to be politically persecuted. And I think a lot of people think that that's a possibility.
What did Elon Musk do wrong that he would that would be? Yeah, explain this to me.
So what they do is Hillary Clinton did an interview last week where she talked about, she actually specifically named X, and she said there's misinformation and disinformation out there. And Elon says, hey, listen, X is just a platform where we're not going to censor what everyone says. I mean, if it's hate speech and stuff like that, they will. But if somebody comes out and says, I really think that there's no way that hurricane could have gotten as powerful as it did, as quickly as it did, without some intervention from something that's not man-made, i.e. a conducted energy weapon, which, hey, believe it or not.
Some people believe it.
Some people believe that if you zap the right amount of heat into the water, it creates favorable conditions for a hurricane to not just develop, but to go where you want it to go based on how you heat up the water. So that's out there on X. And Hillary Clinton says misinformation, disinformation about all of that sort of stuff. And she said, we've got to start charging people, like criminally, for misinformation and disinformation. Otherwise, we can't control the narrative. She wants the information that goes out to the public to be what you see on CBS's 6 o'clock news and ABC and NBC. They're all in line. They're all telling the same story. And you can watch whatever news you want, but it's all going to be the same narrative. But you don't have to go very far on X to realize that the news you see on CNN is very different from the news you see on X, and it shouldn't be that way. So they're saying everything on X is misinformation and disinformation, whereas everything that comes from the mainstream media is real. And I'm not going to say whether it's true or not, but you don't have to ask too many people to realize the vast majority don't trust the mainstream media anymore because they've seen so many examples of bias in their reporting.
Yeah, and to the other side, there's a lot of lunatics on X that are saying all kinds of stupid shit. Not necessarily that, but many, many, many other things.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, there's some rabbit holes that even I won't bother going down.
Yeah.
You know, I look at it and think...
Really?
I'm still worried about why we haven't released the names of the 13 members of parliament that were helped by China in the last election. I'm still stuck on that. Getting into conducted energy weapons to speed up hurricanes, that's well beyond me. I am not going there, and I don't have time or the brain power for it at the moment. But it's when you're talking about charging people criminally for this,
gets interesting, though.
It does, because then we got to ask who decides what's information and what's misinformation.
Yeah.
Who decides what's real? I mean, at one time, the Epstein thing was a conspiracy theory. Turned out to be absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I think that's where lines get blurred. So I don't know where it's going to go, but I do agree with Elon that if Trump doesn't win, he's fucked.
I mean, he wouldn't get persecuted instantly, but he would have to make changes.
He should flee the country.
He would have to make changes. You think so?
He's moving SpaceX to Australia.
Actually, he might.
Gotta go, everybody. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you tomorrow with a new After 9.
Bye, friends.
McDonald's is suing major beef producers for allegedly conspiring to limit their supplies. Meanwhile, Arby's is like, this doesn't affect us.
LeBron James and his son Bronny became the first father-son duo to play together on an NBA team. Well, it probably happened with Will Chamberlain. You know, he just didn't know.
Did you guys see this over the weekend? A Frontier Airlines flight caught on fire after landing in Las Vegas. Yeah, apparently Frontier Airlines is filling the void that Spirit created.